Hi everyone, I am Manolia. Today's topic is logical fallacies 2. Firstly, we will begin inappropriate appeal to authority. This fallacy occurs when an arguer cites a witness or authority who is likely unreliable. Several circumstances can make a source or authority unreliable, including lacking expertise, having bias, questionable accuracy, or being known for general unreliability. Critical thinking is necessary to avoid these fallacies. There are some relevant circumstances, and let's look at briefly at each one of these reasons for questioning the reliability of a source. Is the source not an authority on the subject at issue? It's related to fallacy of inappropriate appeal to authority. It occurs when someone relies on a source who lacks genuine authority on the subject. For instance, if a person's barber expresses a negative opinion about Einstein's theory of relativity, it's fallacious to conclude that Einstein's theory is flawed because the barber is not an authority on the topic. This type of fallacy is common in advertising, where individuals who are experts in one area endorse products or ideas in unrelated fields. An argument becomes fallacious because their expertise doesn't extend to the subject in question. Is the source biased? It's important to be cautious when accepting a claim made by a person who is biased or has a clear motive to lie or mislead. Here is an example. Mrs. Cox has testified that her son Willie was home with her at the time when Willie is alleged to have shot Steve Wilson. Even though Willie's fingerprints were found on the murder weapon and 6 witnesses have identified Willie as the assailant, I can't believe that a good woman like Mrs. Cox would lie to protect her son, and I think Willie is innocent. In this example, Mrs. Cox testifies that her son Willie was with her when he is accused of shooting someone, despite evidence such as Willie's fingerprints on the murder weapon and multiple eyewitnesses identifying him as the assailant. The arguer believes Mrs. Cox wouldn't lie to protect her son. This argument is also fallacious because maternal law is a clear motive to mislead. Is the accuracy of the source's observations questionable? The trustworthiness of a source can be questioned if there are grounds to suspect the validity of their observations or experiences. For example, Jerry, who has listening to heavy metal music on his iPod, claims he heard the victim whisper his name from more than 100 feet away. Jerry has always struck me as a straight shooter, so I have to believe that Jerry really did hear the victim whisper his name. In this example, Jerry, who was listening to heavy metal music on his iPod, claims to heard the victim whisper his name from more than 100 feet away. However, it's hard to hear that sound. Does the source's claim conflict with expert opinion? It's important to consider expert consensus when evaluating a claim. Suggests that although experts are occasionally wrong, it's generally unwise to accept a claim that goes against a clear consensus of experts. For example, Dr. Gish, and former senior vice president of the Institute for Creation Research, has argued that there is no credible evidence supporting the theory of evolution. In view of Dr. Gish's expertise on this subject, we should conclude that evolution is a myth. In this example, Dr. Gish and former senior vice president argues against the theory of evolution. Despite Dr. Gish's expertise on the subject, his view contradicts the overwhelming consensus among scientists who support the theory of evolution. Therefore, it will be fallacious to accept his conclusions solely based on his authority, as the majority of experts in the field disagree with his stance. Is the source's claim not one that can be settled by an appeal to expert opinion? Certain issues are fundamentally contested and cannot be resolved conclusively by relying solely on expert opinions. For example, Dr. Stanford, a leading social philosopher, has argued that capital punishment is always morally wrong. Given Doctor's impressive credentials, we should conclude that capital punishment is always morally wrong. However, the argument suggests, based on Doctor's impressive credentials, we should conclude that capital punishment is always morally wrong. However, this issue is so ethically contentious that it cannot be definitely resolved by an appeal to authority. Is the claim highly improbable on its face? When a claim is highly improbable, we should be hesitant to accept it solely based on the testimony of a witness or an authority figure. This is because the more improbable a claim is, the more likely it's that witness or authority is mistaken or lying. In such cases, we should demand more compelling evidence than just the word of an authority figure. If we accept an extraordinary claim on the basis of authority without sufficient evidence, we are committing the logical fallacy of inappropriate appeal to authority. For example, old Doug Perkins say he has an 80-year-old friend who can run a 100-yard dash in less than 10 seconds. Old Doug is one of the most trusted members of this community. So if Old Doug says he is an 80-year-old friend who can run a 100-yard dash in less than 10 seconds, I believe him. But in this example, Old Dog's reputation in the community, the claim is so improbable on its own that it should be rejected unless substantial supporting evidence is provided. Appeal to ignorance. When there is no evidence to support or refute a claim, it's best to refrain from making a judgment and acknowledge our lack of knowledge. The fallacy of appeal to ignorance occurs when an arguer wrongly concludes that a claim is true because no one has proven it false, or that a claim is false because no one has proven it true. For example, what more evidence do we need? Homeschoolers are hiding something. In this example, there is no any evidence, but other one there is lots of evidence. False alternatives. The fallacy of false alternatives, also known as false dichotomy or black and white thinking, occurs when a limited number of choices, outcomes, or views are presented as the only option among options. For example, since you don't spend a lot, you must be shaving a lot, but I don't eat a lot. Loaded questions. This fallacy is committed when an arguer asks a question that contains an unwarranted assumption. Have you stopped cheating on tests? Questionable cause. This fallacy occurs when an arguer gives insufficient evidence for a claim that one thing is the cause of another. There are three common varieties of the questionable cause fallacy. First one, post hoc fallacy. This fallacy occurs when an arguer assumes without adequate reason that because one event precedes another that the first event was the cause of the second. For example, looks like everyone who died drank water, so drinking water must be killing people. Second one, mere correlation. This fallacy occurs when an arguer assumes without adequate reason that because two conditions or events regularly occur together, there must be a causal relationship between them. For example, how come you always want to meet here for coffee? They are always friendly. The coffee is always delicious, the place is always clean, and I always know what to expect. Oversimplified cause. Arbitrarily, this fallacy is committed when a person arbitrarily selects just one element of a multitude of possible causes of an effect. Violent crime has, for example, violent crime has declined steadily in recent years. Obviously, taller imprisonment policies are working. In this example, policies is not only determining factor. Hasty generalization. This logical fallacy occurs when someone draws a conclusion based on just a small sample size. In other words, the conclusion is supported by insufficient evidence. For example, why should we switch to this buffer solution? Because I'm the lab head and I said slippery slope. This fallacy assumes that one relatively insignificant event will have a series of unintended consequences and lead to some significant outcome. For example, If you don't do as I want, the company will go bankrupt, then the sector, and finally the whole economy. Weak analogy. When analogy is used to prove or disprove an argument, in this fallacy drawing an equivalence between two subjects because they share some characteristic while ignoring the differences between them. For example, cats are liquids. Liquids take the shape of the container while maintaining a constant volume. That's it. So cats are liquid. And inconsistency. This fallacy occurs when an arguer asserts inconsistent premises, asserts a premise that is inconsistent with his or her conclusion, or argues for inconsistent conclusions. For example, hey Yogi, what do you say we eat at Toast tonight? That place is old news and nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. Thank you.